My name is Matt Ayers, and I'm interviewing Mrs. Pat Hightower and Miss Beulah Jones. We are at 199 North Main Street. Today's date is Tuesday, May 17th, 2011, and the time is 1:11 p.m. Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
No problem. All right, so first question we have is, were you born in Mansfield?
Yes, I was.
I was.
All right, so why did your family originally come to Mansfield?
First of all, let's say we're cousins.
Okay.
And maybe you don't know that, but my mother and her mother were sisters. So I think that's one reason why we got here. Our grandfather
And grandmother.
they came
They married they came from what? Marietta, Ohio.
Was there a particular reason, or they just?
They never told us.
It could have been jobs.
Probably was. And Mansfield well, I did have quite a few jobs opening.
And our grandfather, he did a lot of carpentry work, a lot of construction work. In fact, what plant was that he helped build? It wasn't Ideal, it was Dominion. I remember when I was a little girl, he was helping to build that factory.
All right, so do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have well, my mother had 6 children. I'm the oldest, and the oldest boy was killed in Korea. I have 2 brothers, one in Mansfield and one in Dayton, Ohio, and 2 sisters, one in Litchfield, Ohio, in Medina County, and one lives in Shelby.
And I have a sister. My oldest sister passed away in 2000, back the day before 9/11 happened, 2001. And I have a sister in Crestline, Ohio. I have another sister. She lives in Mansfield. I have brothers and sisters through foster care, but they are my brothers and they are my sisters.
All right, so what was life like in your family growing up?
I thought it was wonderful. I really did.
Yeah, well, the families were rather close.
Yes. We grew up on Lily Street. I grew up on Lily Street, and the thing about growing up there, you had a sense of what it was like. It wasn't just your family,
No, it was a community.
but it was a community. And our grandmother, and we lived with our grandmother for a while, at least my sister and I did, and my mother. And up the street, I think it was Aunt Lucille, your mom,
Yeah.
and then 2 houses up was our other aunt, the oldest one, Aunt Liz. And I think one time Toddy lived across the street,
Yeah.
where your uncle J.D. Middlebrook.
Yeah.
So it was great. I mean, you could walk up and down the street, and you just knew everyone knew everyone. It was a sense of security and a great feeling. It really was.
I remember moving there in, I think it was 1937, and there were a lot of, well, what were they? I don't know. Skadovas were there, and
Yes.
Servinskis, and Millers, and who else? But it was
Bowers.
Yeah, it was a mixed community, and everyone seemed to get along real well.
And wasn't the Joneses there? Was he part of the Jones potato chip thing?
I
One
can't
years
remember
ago,
that.
he was very young. The Fowlers were there. It was great. It was a great place to be a child and grow up.
It's terrible now.
There's no Lily Street anymore.
All right, so where did your parents work?
My father worked at the steel mill for a while, and the Humphreys. My mother, when she retired from the hospital. But she also did day work, cleaning homes and things like that in the earlier days.
My father was in the service. He was there for 25 years, so basically he was always away. And my mother she worked in restaurants, and then she did a lot of domestic work also.
Do you remember any of the restaurants she worked at all?
One of the restaurants used to be the Subway restaurant one. It was down here on Park Avenue. I remember Ford's. She worked there for a while. And then there was the Leland Hotel. I think they had a restaurant up there. Where else? The Fairview. It's on 3rd Street, there used to be a hotel there, and there was a restaurant they had in there. Was that the Fairview? I'm trying to think of some of these names, but I believe it was, and it was right behind the bank on 3rd and Main. There was a hotel back there.
Yeah, Dad worked there for a while too, as a second job.
Okay. All right, so where did you ladies go to school at?
Well, I started off at Hedges School, and then I transferred, that was the 1st grade, and then I was at Bushnell School, and then we moved to Lily Street, and that's when I started going to Creveling School. And I think one of the ladies mentioned about how we had to go up the back steps. There were only 3 African-American teachers there. Miss Joyce, Helen Joyce, taught 1st and 2nd grade, and Miss Beck taught the 3rd and 4th grade, and Ruth Carter taught 5th and 6th grade. But I really credit them for the education that I got. They really drilled it into us. And at that time, they did have the Bible in school, and we learned a lot of scriptures from the Bible. We were really taught that.
I went to Bushnell School. That's where I started out at. Of course, they have a Bushnell reunion every year, but I remember my 2nd grade teacher. She had a profound effect on me, Miss Mosley, and I think she even went to the last 2 years. She was at some of the reunions, and then I went to, it was the Bowman Street School. They tore Bowman Street School down, and it became Creveling School. And during that time when they were tearing down the Bowman Street School, they would transfer us up to the old West 5th Street School, because that was still standing. They had built a new West 5th Street School. And then I went to Simpson. I went to senior high for just 6 weeks, and then I moved to Massachusetts and graduated there.
So the old Bowman Street School was actually torn down at one point then. So there was there was nothing there a lot. They rebuilt what we see today, part of what we see today.
What you see today is completely new, isn't it?
I thought part of it was still there.
Is the back part still there?
Part of it is still there.
Is it really? I haven't noticed, but I knew when they were tearing it was Bowman Street School then.
Okay, interesting. I just had never heard that before. That was new to me. So.
And I was in the 3rd grade at the time, and they would transport us up to West 5th, because West 5th, they had built the new school. So the children in that neighborhood went to the new school, and the ones from the old Bowman Street School, we went to the old part of the West 5th Street School.
So whereabouts was that located, the old West 5th?
It was right where the parking lot is now.
Okay.
You know where the West 5th Street School is? Well, the old one. Well, in the parking lot, that's where the old building was.
Okay.
Then they tore that one down.
Okay.
All right, so I just would like to touch on what you mentioned earlier. When you were at Creveling, you said it was segregated then when you were going there?
It was Bowman Street School, but at that time, yes, it was segregated.
Okay. Was it, what about when you were there, Mrs. Hightower, was it segregated as well during that time?
I believe it was, and the reason I say that, when growing up, there was a sense we knew things.
Yeah.
Do you understand? We knew things. We knew there was things that was going on that you couldn't do, places you couldn't go. It was annoying. I was not blessed to have some of those teachers you mentioned.
No, I don't think so. My uncle, Jack Middlebrook, filed a suit against the school. He had his daughter do it. She was, and that's when they ended the segregation. And that was in
the Future Outlaw read he had, didn't
it was 70. No, it wasn't. It was earlier. I forget the exact date, but I'm sure there's a record of it someplace.
All right, just to make sure we got this right, you said Mr. Middlebrook was your uncle?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So, do you have any stories or memories about him at all? I mean, what he did for the community? I'm sure there's a lot, right?
Absolutely. He was awesome, wasn't he?
Well, he was into so much.
He was an insurance man. He was a realtor. He had the Future Outlaw League. It was on Lyda Street. Outlook League.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a place you would go. I mean, everything was positive, what he did. It was very positive. And he was there to help young people and to help the community. I don't know how you would call it then. They call it colored or Afro-American or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a lot. He was truly a pioneer. He really was.
It opened up, I think, people to start working in Westinghouse, A&P, supermarket. I guess it was supermarket,
Mm-hmm.
grocery store.
It was
But
A&P.
he and his wife would teach the young people how to write their resumes and go for job interviews and teach them different things like that. But he was, my uncle was in so much.
Yeah.
So,
He was also a minister.
yeah.
And he had great values. He really stood for great values.
Do you remember what church he was a minister at? Or?
He wasn't the minister, but he was one
Oh,
of
okay.
the ministers. It was Mount Calvary.
Mount Calvary.
So the Future Outlook League, is that?
Yes, it was an organization similar to the NAACP. When the NAACP was not active in Mansfield, the Future Outlook League, well, they called it FOL.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
They were doing the work in the community.
Okay. Any specific examples of things that they worked on or anything you remember?
Well, so the things I mentioned, you know, like the going to A&P and Westinghouse and opening up different jobs.
So was there, I mean, what did that take? You mentioned suing the school system in terms of opening up, ending segregation. Was it a situation where you would show up and protest, or was it, I mean?
Through the FOL, we didn't protest, but through the NAACP, I have been on some of the protests.
Okay.
And it was a lot of him talking to people because he was in real estate himself and he was an insurance man. So there was some people that he could talk to. And in helping people get jobs, I think that was one of the things that where Afro-Americans weren't in certain positions. It's hard to think of now, but I remember in 60, 61, 2, 3, that Shirley Jordan and I were the first Afro-Americans to go to Kroger's and work. And you tell someone that now, he's, are you serious? And I do remember that when I went to work in probate court, I was the first Afro-American to work in probate court. And I believe you were the first ones in the treasury.
I was the first in the treasurer's office.
It's hard to believe that now, but that was what was going on then.
And I was among the first 3 that was hired at Thermogist.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, in order for us to get a job out there, we had to get a letter from our pastor.
Interesting. Why so? I'm just curious.
They just wanted to make sure, I guess, that we were Christians.
Interesting.
Wasn't Mr. Bolesky?
Yeah, Hod Bolesky was.
I think he was a Christian too.
Mhm.
I think he has certain values.
Interesting.
So was it a circumstance where they wouldn't hire people if you didn't have a letter from your pastor, if you weren't a Christian?
I can't say,
Yeah.
but I know we had to have it.
Interesting.
But now, I guess you're just walking off the street, anyone to work out there.
Interesting.
But there were, let's see, Billy Jordan, I believe, was first, and I was the second, and Pat Lawrence, I believe, was the third. We were in that first group that went out there.
All right, so were you involved in any activities in school at all?
Well, I was the oldest in the family, and with Mom and Dad working, I was in charge of the younger ones. I came home, I started cooking for the family when I was 12 years old. I would plan the menu, and Mom and Dad would go buy the groceries, and I would cook. I had to see to it that everything was done. So I didn't participate in too many activities when I was in school.
But she was a great role model for the rest of us. She really was. I didn't participate in a lot of things. We did we get together, we do our own little cheers, or we would, play
From Friendly House.
Friendly House, yes. Speaking of the Friendly House, I graduated from Friendly House in 1940. I was born in 39, 43. And that's when it was on Main Street. You didn't ask that question, but.
Actually, a lot of people have talked about that,
Yeah.
where the old Friendly House was.
Yeah, when we lived on Adams Street, and I was going, before I went to Bushnell School, I went to the Friendly House with Mr. and Mrs. Russell Agimbo. And I still have the picture at home where we graduated. It was Tony Walker, Glenn Bonner, and different ones. And then I went to Bushnell, and I believe from there, when they tore down the one on Main Street, then that's when they built the one over on Mulberry Street.
Now, do you remember, I know some of the ladies had talked to us that the Friendly House was actually segregated as well when they were there. Like, after their first grade, or their kindergarten class, they segregated the students. I don't know if you remember that.
But some of the classes, well, I don't know later, because I was in one of the earlier groups. I learned how to knit when I was 7 years old at the Friendly House. And I never forgot it. I mean, I have grandchildren now that I knit things for. I knitted for the Red Cross during World War II. And I said, here, I went there, and I have children that went there, grandchildren that have been there. But even though it was a little segregated, it was segregated, as Pat said, we knew our place. And we just...
I think some of the activities, just like they had a swimming pool, and you would swim. It's sort of like when you went skating on Monday nights. We went skating. You probably heard that already. You went skating on Monday nights, and that was sort of like our night to go skating. Now, you just knew you wasn't going to go on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but Monday nights, that's the night we went skating, like from 7 to 10, and it's just, you just knew. Yeah. It was like when you went to the movie. When you went to the old Park Theater,
and the Ritz,
you knew you were going to sit on the right-hand side. It was just knowing.
Yeah, that was one of the things we talked about. It's interesting, like there was never, it wasn't a law or anybody
There
was
wasn't
telling
a
you, it was just
sign.
like an unspoken
Yes,
sort of thing? Okay.
that's it. You knew.
Interesting.
And it's the same with the Ritz Theater, the old Madison, and the Ohio. You just knew there were certain places that you were going to sit. And you just said, well, all your friends were there, so you didn't have a problem with it.
I'm so thankful it's not like that now.
Yes.
Well, similarly, we had also heard about Wednesday nights at the Friendly House. There was dances, which was another sort of, was that blacks only?
My children were down there at that time.
Okay. Kind of, it always comes up in terms of Monday night at the roller rink, and then Wednesday night at the Friendly House. Was any memories of that or anything that?
Well, as I say, my children were there at
Yeah.
that time.
I don't think I went there too often. I would go sometimes, but I didn't go too often, so I can't give you too much information. But I know it happened. I really did.
So it was just interesting. I know a lot of people talk about the kindergarten classes. Everybody was together, and then after kindergarten is when they split everybody up. I just, I was always curious about that.
And that's the same way it was when you left Bowman School. You were, at that time that I was there, and when you went to John Simpson, you were mixed with the community, I guess we'd call it.
All right, so what year did you ladies graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1956, but I graduated from school in Lowell, Massachusetts. When I was in, as I said, in the 10th grade, I went here 6 weeks, and my father being in the Army, we moved to Lowell, Massachusetts, and that's when I graduated.
Well, my class would have been 46. I didn't graduate at that time, but I did graduate later on when one of my daughters said they were going to go to the 11th grade and quit, and I said, oh no. So I went and got my diploma then to prove to them that they needed this education. So now all of them are doing real well.
So did you attend college after?
No. I just had some class.
No, we didn't go straight to college, and it was sort of like, well, I was in Massachusetts, and I'll be honest, I wanted to get married. My husband and I, we've been married, it'll be 53 years in July, and I was in Massachusetts, and my mother said, if you want to go back with him, you'll get married. So we did. and I never regretted it, and I've been blessed with 3 beautiful children. But did I go to school? Not then. But I think like Beulah, it was one of those things that as I got older and my children did their education, I started going to seek, a higher education. And then at that time I was in the ministry work, so I went to Shalom Bible College, and that's where I got my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD in theology.
Sorry, what was the name of that school again?
Shalom Bible College.
Okay, where was that located?
West Des Moines, Iowa.
Excellent.
And I would have to go there 2 or 3 times a year, but I did most of it through a study. Like they would give me the things and I could send it in.
So almost by mail correspondence, was that?
Yes, because I would like to say it was by the computer, but it wasn't. That would sound good, but that's not true.
So when you got married, did that bring you back to Mansfield
Yes.
at that point? And
Yes.
So you knew your
You
husband,
stayed-
your future husband here?
Yeah,
or
I
did
met
you
him when
meet
I was in kindergarten.
Okay, so you guys came up together.
Yes.
I see.
Mhm.
And so that brought you back.
And I was only too happy because, in fact, I stayed with her mother for a year. When I would come back, and Aunt Lucille, I stayed with her, and she was just a wonderful. As I said, I feel so blessed for my aunts and uncles that that surrounded us. Really, she was just a wonderful lady.
Yeah,
Really
she
was.
liked Aunt so well that I'm her cousin, but she called me Aunt Beulah.
Yeah, she's my cousin, but I call her because I have a great deal of respect for her.
Sure.
She's not going to tell you, but there's a lot of things she's gone through, and she's helped in a lot of different organizations she's been involved in that was groundbreaking, and someone had to make the step, someone had to step up, and she's one of the ones that stepped up. And the thing about it is, it's never about yourself, it's always helping someone else, and that was the blessing of it. It was to make a life better for other people. So for that, I have a great deal of respect for her.
Yeah, I think I got that from my uncle. Well, my grandmother too. I always said I wanted to be like my grandmother.
Yeah,
And
she
my
was
uncle.
great. We had a wonderful grandmother, didn't we? I always tell this story. We lived on Lily Street. There's a railroad track that goes through there, and now they call them homeless, but at the time they called them hobos. You probably heard this story before, but I always say Grandma's house was marked because people would come and knock on the door, on the back door. They would always come and knock, and she would say, okay, whatever she had, she shared. And she was the most giving person, and they knew they could always get something to eat, a sandwich or whatever, if they knocked on her door. And so we would say Grandma's house was marked because when the trains would stop and the people that were on the trains, the transits, whatever, they would knock at her door, and never did she turn anyone away, never.
People in Mansfield knew Ethel Burke. They really knew her.
Yeah, she was a wonderful, wonderful person. And the story, she worked at the hospital.
Oh.
And and she was always, that was her mission field, really. And there's the story that she was cleaning up after after surgery, where the doctors had left quite a large sum of money in his pants, and it was cash, and she could have kept it, but she didn't. She found out who it was and gave all of it back. And that just shows you the kind of person she was. And that's the umbrella we were raised up under.
Yeah, there's another time she was a patient in the hospital herself, and someone needed help, and she would get out of her bed and go help someone.
She was awesome. We were just blessed, Grandma. And every Christmas, I don't care what it was, everyone had a gift. It didn't have to be a lot, but it came from Grandma. And I remember, even when Kim was born, Grandma would walk to the hospital. She was always walking. We lived on Lily Street. We went to church on 2nd Street, and we would walk. We would, she would walk to the hospital to see whatever new child was born, her new grandchild or great-grandchild. She was there. She was.
Strong lady.
Yes, she was. We were truly blessed to have a grandmother like that.
All right, so where was your first job?
The one that let's see, when I talked about Kroger's, I think Shirley Jordan, and you know, sometimes I think that Mr. Uncle Jack Middlebrook was instrumental in that too, because that was in the 60s. And I think Shirley Jordan was there only just about, maybe a month or, but then I came and I stayed there 9 years. Then when I left Kroger's, and it's hard to believe that in this time in Kroger's, because there was going to be, I understand there was going to be a demonstration because they did not have any Afro-Americans as cashiers. And so I remember the manager at the time saying, "Can you do the math? Can you do this?" And I said, "I think I can." But anyhow, I did. I had to take a test and I passed it, and I was hired. And I stayed there 9 years.
Now, where was that located at that time?
It was the Kroger's that was on Park Avenue East. It's where Job and Family Services.
Oh, wow.
It was torn down, and then they built the one out there on Ashland Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware there was one there.
Yeah, where the Job and Family Services and Super X was there, and that's where the Kroger's was
There
at the
for
time.
years.
Mm-hmm. That's where.
And that was the first one in town.
No, I think the first one was on Park Avenue West, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? Whereabouts was that?
Where the, let's see,
I don't remember.
it was, let's see, what would be there now, Durham Sports, or, you know, on Park Avenue West across from, we used to have the Miracle Mile used to be really busy.
Sure.
At that time, but that's where the first Kroger's was.
Okay, interesting.
All right. So, what was the neighborhood like when you were growing up?
I think we covered that.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, because we had the different races there, and we all intermingled.
Mm-hmm. But there was so much respect. I remember you didn't dare do anything because it wasn't about if your mother was there or your aunt. It was the fact that there was, you know, Miss Eubanks could be sitting on the porch, or Miss Fagan or whoever, and you just, there was an amount of respect that young people had for older people, and it wasn't and you didn't dare talk back. That was unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't dare say anything.
Right.
It was a great neighborhood. It really was.
I didn't get back to my first paying job was in Shelby at the depot.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I think they closed in 1957. I mean, I had worked, you know, in restaurants doing little odd jobs and things, but that was really my first job that I could say was, so.
And what did they do there?
The depot was Air Force depot, they supply for the different bases throughout the country.
So how did that work? You weren't actually producing anything. You were gathering things and shipping it out
to a warehouse.
A warehouse.
With
Okay.
supplies.
Okay.
But it was a, you know, government Air Force facility. There were a lot of people worked there.
A lot of people were employed there.
And I know Shelby was really hurt when they closed that down, like Ontario with GM.
Yeah. Well, coming back to what you were saying about the neighborhood being relatively integrated,
Yes.
when you were growing up, do you remember how, like, what that was like as it changed? I mean, any memories of the changing?
Well, a lot of them started moving out, but still, the people were close. I mean, we were still a family, community, until just recent years, and it started deteriorating so badly.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a Lily Street now. From
Not
when
much.
I drove through there one day.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of related even to sort of things we've heard about Mr. Middlebrook's work and redlining and the idea, the difficulty that African Americans had in procuring loans.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on that or memories or any?
He, what was that? Was it Mansfield Building and Loan? Was it Mr. Durham? They could, that was one place they could get loans, but there were a lot of them that it was hard to get a loan. I remember Mom and Dad got, I think it was Mansfield building a loan. It's up there where, it's close to where the, what is the bank now, Key Bank, between Key Bank and, it was in that area, just a little small place, but I don't know what's really in there now, unless the bank took over all of that.
I'm not quite sure, but I do understand that it was a certain place they would lend you money, but if the home was for another district, I remember even where I live at now, I believe Main Street was sort of at the time the dividing line of where when you started going west, Mansfield was not as large, because going west, that's when you started like on West Park Avenue West, that way in Woodland. There was certain places that they were not going to give you a loan. That's my understanding of it, and there was redlining, you know. You didn't hear about it, but you just knew.
It was there. You would apply and they would turn you down for some reason.
And do you remember that there was only 2 stores that would give you credit? Well, maybe not credit, but remember there was a store uptown. It was called, was it Mohawks, or what was that store? That you could go and I remember you could get credit if you wanted to buy. It was on the, one store was on the corner of 3rd and Main Street.
I don't remember.
And you could go up there and you could get, it was a clothing store, you could get credit, but not every store gave you credit. I remember we would go up there, and the reason I know Uncle Wesley, he would ask me to go help him pay his bills, and that was one of the stores. There was 2 stores that you could go, and they would give you credit, and you would pay like maybe $4 or $5 a week, and if Mama took us up there and it was Easter time and we got a dress or a skirt or whatever, and you could get it on credit, but not every store did that for you.
Most of them you had to have layaways.
I think some of the folks have mentioned one was a grocery store maybe that you could go up and.
Well, a lot of the grocery stores did. There were 2 grocery stores on Daisy Street, and well, there's a church where one is now.
Yeah, what was the name of that one?
Hunters. And I forget the name of the other one.
And the other grocery store, I was born up above it. That's where, when I was born at home. I was born in that store. It was an
But you
apartment
could
up
always
there
get
on Daisy Street.
food in those stores.
How would you say the neighborhood's different today? I know you touched on it a little bit.
Well, there is no neighborhood on Lloyd Street anymore. And it's because, have you seen the silos? You can see them, you know. And of course, that's another thing. I can't even talk about that, because when they said they were going to put them in, I thought they were going to put in silos like compared to what was there. But those silos belong in the country. I mean, that's not a city, something you should put in a neighborhood setting as big as those are. But that's my opinion. But there isn't a neighborhood now. I mean, there's just not a neighborhood there. All the homes are gone.
There's still, Daisy Street is okay.
But my understanding is that they make so much noise that the environment is changing over there. And that's something that, you know, we have to look into. Because even, was it Mrs., what's her name? Lives on Daisy Street. Brightwell, yeah, Dorothy. She said the environment, you know, you can, I guess, I don't know, with the winds blowing, what if it's safe for them, so things like that need to be looked into. It really does.
So do you remember about the time when they decided to bring the granary into that area? Do you remember it all?
Now, there was granary there when we were young, but it wasn't as like it is now. There were rats in the neighborhood. I mean, there were big rats, you know, that they had to take care of. But really, I can't remember.
I don't, you know, it wasn't, I guess, it wasn't as noticeable. You just knew that if you went down by Miss Jones' house, if you're going down there, you'd be close to the granary or where the tracks were. And you just didn't go down there. But,
You didn't go down that end.
Yeah.
The other end, we used to go down and play
mhm.
ball. The kids would play ball at the northern end of it, but the southern part of it, where the greenery was, you just didn't play around it.
Now, do you remember at all? Did they actually, was it something that they talked to the people in the neighborhood about, or did they just move it in on them and that was it? I mean, was it something that was?
You mean the new ones?
Oh, the old ones.
Oh, the old ones?
I don't know.
As far as I know, it was always there. I don't remember.
It's been there as long as I can remember.
I don't remember. I think it was there.
Okay, what about the new one? Was that something that the people, they were okay with them bringing in, or was it something they just kind of didn't have a choice about?
The new ones, I don't believe they thought they were going to be like that. And when they were purchasing some of the properties, as you well know, there was a playground there, and they were going to move the playground across the street. Well, now there's no need to have a playground across the street because those silos are so big and so overpowering. It's not a place you would want even a child to be. So I don't believe, when I first saw them, I couldn't believe it. I said, I can't believe they put it. It was. And even would you want those in your neighborhood? No. Not where you have a house, a home. I didn't know they were going to be like that.
That's why I asked. I was curious if they let people know what kind of size and what kind of what space this would take up, or if they just say, hey, it's going to be here and it's that not really any details about it.
I understand they were going to put them in, but I didn't see the pictures of what they were going to look like, and that's all I can say. Not happy about it.
I was surprised when I saw them. I didn't know they were going to do it.
They said they were going to add another 1 or 2 silos.
When did they come to council about that?
No, they went through community development.
Oh.
And so when they called me in regard to it, and I said, oh, really? And I said, what are they going to do? And they said, well, they just want to add, it was played down, so to speak. And when I drove past there, and in fact, the Fowlers, that was the last house where there was people living, and my niece lived there, and she said she couldn't live there anymore. She had to move.
Interesting. All right, so what was life like for African Americans in Mansfield in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s?
Well, again, as we say, there's a sense of knowing. There's certain things you know, places you know you didn't go, restaurants you knew you wouldn't go to. I remember we would go get conies on our way back from the movie, but you could go in, they would wait on you at the you could go in there and buy a coney for $10, but you didn't sit down and eat it. You just knew that, and it was just things you knew. Do you remember, even downtown, there was going down Main Street, and there was, I think there was, when those bars were all there was one across 6th, and it's a place that you knew that Afro-Americans didn't go to. Now, there were certain ones they could go to, but there was other ones you just knew you didn't go to. It was just knowing, no, we don't go there, we don't. The changes,
I was busy, I guess, during that time with doing the cooking, taking care of my sisters, for my siblings. But I don't know, life was just, I guess we were just happy-go-lucky. I guess that's the way to put it.
we were very. But the changes, I think they came with people because of the NAACP, and a lot of people were doing a lot of things that would open up doors. As I stated before, and you look at us, and can I tell your age?
I'm thankful.
You're 82?
Yeah.
And I'm 72. And you think, well, this, how could they be the first? It must have been years before then. But so many things that you could see unfold that happened. It wasn't the same for my children that were raised here. it wasn't the same as it was for me. I could see some doors, and there's people, you know, even like Reverend Washington, Mr. Middlebrooks, and different people that did a lot of things that, and churches were instrumental in a lot of things too, that started to open up the doors. So that it did make life a little bit different. Is it perfect? Is there any perfect place now? No. But the doors did start to open up, even in regard to teachers. And you find yourself, and I gotta be very delicate when I say this, you find yourself going places sometimes when you sit and you look around at the people that make all the decisions, and you think, this is interesting. Because it needs the decision, when people are making decisions for other people, and you wonder where are these decisions coming from. And you sit there and you go to that meeting or this meeting, like, this is very interesting. And sometimes it hasn't changed, and that's one of the things, you know, that we really pray for.
Do you have anything you'd like to add, Ms. Jones?
Oh, I'm just thinking that the young people today, they don't know what we went through to get them in these positions. They feel like I did this on my own, but they're standing on someone else's shoulders.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because my thing when I say to young people about voting, I remember seeing this, and it brought tears to my eyes, where this man had waited, and he all these years to vote, and what they had to do, and where he was not allowed to vote, and what an honor it was. He got all dressed up to go vote, because he wasn't allowed, but now he was allowed to go vote. And when people say, oh, what difference, they take it very lightly. I said, somebody died so you would have this privilege. And that's what you want them to understand.
Right.
That someone, you know, you're standing on someone's shoulder for you to do this.
And these, I mean, they get these jobs, but they don't realize how many sit-ins there have been, and marches. But we have to teach them. Let them know that you didn't get this by yourself. It wasn't always this way.
That's true.
So that actually leads me right into the next question. How did the civil rights movements affect you and affect Mansfield as a community?
Well, I'm a life member of the NAACP, and I was secretary of the organization for about 6 or 7 years. I've been at set-ins, and we marched around the telephone company, and we had a set-in at the school board when it was on 6th Street, and I'm trying to think of some of the other things.
That's why I said, when I said she did so many great things, she really has.
Well, but well, I worked with the League of Women Voters for a while too. But I don't know. It's just something I feel like it should be done. Is who's going to do it? If not me, who? So I just did what I could. I don't brag about it. I don't talk about it. But I just did what I could. Now I'm tired.
It's sort of like passing the torch. You've
Hopefully.
done so much in there. And I think what it is, when you pass the torch, you want to be sure there's someone there to pass it to.
Right.
And that has that same caring feeling. And it doesn't have to be, there's so many other things that you have to fight for. And you don't want the young people to think, this, it's over, this is what it's all about, and I don't have to do anything, and I don't care anymore. That's now I must say, this is why I love this place. I really do, but because of the things that go on here, because of the young people that are being trained. And that's the thing, training young people. When Deanna comes up to council, she brings the young people with her as part of a training. Yes, you're going to sit there one day, you're going to run this. Let them know these things. That's so very important, because someone sat in so you could do this, so you can sit here. And that's what you want them to understand. and to say we're going to carry it on, because it is, if it is not an issue, even race, it could be something else, from from age discrimination, or there's so many other things that you could be, so many other isms out there. So it's great, you want them to know and understand, but she built this, she got so far, and now it's your turn, and so please take it and continue on. Sort of like in the Olympics, you pass the torch on, it's time to pass it on. So you want to make sure that torch stays lit and the people keep running with it, no matter what the situation. I always say for me, if everyone needs to be treated fairly, whatever it is, everyone needs to be treated with equality and fairly. So the fight might be different, but there's always going to be a fight.
I know you touched on it a little bit. You said there was marches and sit-ins. Was there any other kind of civil rights activities going on in Mansfield that you remember?
One of the great things I remember is when Dr. Martin Luther King was here. Of course, I know you know about that. And then when Joe King, his uncle, was here, he did a lot of things. And when he was towards the end for him, we had this great big dinner for him, and his granddaughter, one of Martin's daughters, came and she spoke. No one is perfect, and I always say that, but you respect what he did, and he really did a lot also. He really did a lot. You don't realize, and even when you would call about an appointment to rent a house, or if you would, and you probably got this too, you would call and they say, when you'd get there, it was already rented. So that was a lot of things that people had to go through, that had to be stopped, and that's one of the things that the door was open. And if you didn't sound like you were Afro-American, then they would show you, they would make the appointment, then when you get there, the story would change.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unsettling things that happen. Even when you would get hired a place, to make sure that you were treated fairly. It's one thing to hire people, but it's another thing to train them properly and to make sure they were just moving along as the other people were moving along. So.
Anything you want to add? All right, so tell me about your church, lady.
Church. I go to Providence Baptist Church. I've served on quite a few boards and committees, and with my age, I decided it's time for me to slow up. But I was a trustee at one time. I sang in the choir. I was president of usher for 12 years. I was the announcement clerk.
She did it all.
I love my church. I mean, I was baptized at Shiloh Baptist Church. And when I married, my husband was a Methodist. He went to Mitchell Chapel AME Church. So I went there so the children wouldn't be divided. After he died, and I just felt like I wanted to get back in the Baptist church. So that's when I came down to Providence. My mother was still living and she was there. But I sang in the choir, I sang in the other group. They called themselves the Voices. I used to sing with them, and I ushered them. I just worked and just believed in working in church wherever I felt like I was needed. The last thing I've done recently was they wanted to update the bylaws, and I was on that committee. But I think it's time for some of the younger people to take my place.
We were, when she said Shiloh Church, that was our church we started out with. And then the pastor, Reverend Larson, who was the pastor of that church, he used to be at Shiloh. And I remember we went to Chicago on the bus when he was installed and he was getting his ministry license. I was so excited. But I go to a church now, it's called Abundant Life. It's across from Sam's Club. It's a diverse church. it's non-denominational, and we, you know, it's just a great church. And I also we have a ministry up on West 4th Street called Greatest Love Ministries. It's we're the ones that used to give out all the school supplies years ago, and God answered a prayer where we said we just wanted children to be able to start off. The first year we did it, we had about 12 or 13 children. We gave them all their school supplies, and this little girl in the 3rd grade started crying, and I thought, what's the matter? And she said, I never had all my stuff before. And of course, you know, that broke. And it started it. So the last year we did it, Lydia Reed was mayor at the time, and she came down and she helped us. And that year we gave over 600 children their school supplies. And we would get the list from the teachers, what they needed, and that's what we would go by, what, you know, from marking, markers or crayons, pens, pencils, whatever they needed. That's what we would try to give them. And that was the last year. We still give them, but maybe it's only like 50 or 60 that we give children. But so many other places have picked it up, and that's a blessing, because that's what you wanted.
Right.
You know, you don't want children to go to school, and we would give out dictionaries, because now everybody's got a computer. So, but it's just that that was the blessing that. So we're still there. We still do things in the department of trying to help people, but we did have a thing 2 years ago, the Joy of Christmas Giving, where children would come and shop, and they shop for free. Everything was new, nothing real expensive, but they could shop, but they had to shop for members of their family. And our local TV station came down, and they interviewed this one young man, and it touched our hearts, because he said, this is the first time I was able to give back to my aunt, who has given so much to me. So that's the thing that when you want young people to know and understand, it's joy to be able to give. And who knows, they might have one here one year. That would be a blessing.
So what do you think the role of the church is in your community then?
I have to say that Providence, Pastor Hunt, I call him like Pastor Larson. I call him the city's pastor.
Community pastor.
Yes, because he is everywhere, and he is that same spirit that Reverend Larson had. He has it, and but you see him everywhere. We were at the last week. It was the day of prayer. He was up there. I'm going to so many different events, and Pastor Hunt is there. He truly is. I would call him the city's pastor. I jokingly say that to him. But you find him, he has such a caring spirit. He cares about people. He really is. So when you say the role of the church, to keep praying for the city, I know. And you know, more, and so many churches now, they give away food. So they're being involved in helping to feed a lot of people. We do that at our church. Yeah, on Saturday. We give away food from the Cleveland Food Bank the last Saturday of every month. They give, and but before now they give it away. They do have people come and have a little service with them.
The theme of our church is a friendly church, exalting our coming King.
Exalting the coming King.
But we do say it's a church of the community. But where we're located, you know, it's right in the center of town almost, right there on 6th Street. And, well, you know, when we had the big flood, really I think the flood did us a favor, because we were able to rebuild it. We didn't have flood insurance, but the men of the church were, well, they were not only men of our church, but a lot of volunteers came. And we now have a fellowship hall that we can use for, you know, gatherings. And it's really nice now. So I said that was really a blessing in disguise, because it was beginning to deteriorate in some of those places, it was the older part of the church. But it's really nice now. My children surprised me 3 years ago. They had my 80th birthday party there. And I was really, I was really surprised at the extent that they went to.
It's wonderful.
But, I mean, you know, you can have functions like that there. I think they said they served 150 people at that night. And they did all the cooking.
It was great.
All right, so tell us about your fondest memory growing up in the North End or on Lily Street.
Oh, the fondest memory.
Ooh.
You know, you just had a sense of security in a way. It was, you had a sense of, you didn't feel left out. Family, I had a so strong sense of family, being surrounded by.
A lot of times when we had the family reunions, I think that, and all of us together, that was a lot to think about.
And I remember there being a lot of fruit trees in everybody's yard.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if they have them now, but
No.
everybody had fruit trees, so we would go in one place and get apples, one place and get peaches, cherries or whatever, pears, and the gardens. The gardens are coming back thanks to you. It was just, it was a great childhood, really.
Yeah, carefree days when you were younger. No worries.
It was, you know, it was, and someone asked me one time, were you poor? And I said, if I was, I didn't know it.
That's it.
And that's what it was. I remember Grandpa fishing, Mom going fishing, but there was always food
Daddy went
there.
hunting.
Yeah, so, as I said, if I was, I didn't know it, because that wasn't, you know, what children want these days. That was not our care then. So.
I know, one of my daughters, I was driving her to church one day. She said, Mommy, we're rich. I said, girl, what is wrong with you? She said, but Mommy, we have a house, we have food, we have clothes. I said, yes, I guess you're right, we are rich.
And we had a lot of fun. We didn't have the thing that we did not have was a TV. I didn't have a TV until I was in the 12th grade. And so, and as my grandchildren asked me now, well, what did you do? And I said, we read, and we would trade comic books. And, you know, we'd say, well, can I go trade books with someone? Or,
and you played outdoors.
Yes.
You have to exercise.
Yes, so I don't have a negative thing to put on it. You know, when I look back, I said, well, thank God we had family.
Yeah.
We really did, and thank God for that.
I think that's basically what it was. We can remember our happy days.
Do you have worst memory at all?
Well, one of the worst memories was hearing that my brother was killed in Korea.
His name is up there on that monument in the park, George Miller.
George Miller.
Was he actually the first African American to die, or the only one from Richland County?
He was the only African American from Richland County.
I believe we scanned some of those photos.
Yeah, I think I brought him in. Yeah.
He was, you know, talking about a very intelligent young man. He had graduated and he was going to Ashland University, and he was the director of our choir. That's when we were all going to Shallon, and he was the director, and he was when he had to go to the service. You know, we were all very sad. Yeah, they drafted him, and we were all very sad. And I remember when the news did come about how first he was missing in action.
Yeah, he was only in the service.
Korean conflict, they called it, but
was it 8 months, or was it that long? Yeah, but he wanted to be a music major. He played several instruments, and just took his life.
And as I think your father didn't he play?
Yeah, Dad played saxophone. Junior played saxophone.
And Leon?
My baby brother played saxophone. I have a grandson who plays saxophone. But Junior, he was the one that was killed in Korea.
He
He
was
played clarinet and piano, and he was taking violin lessons.
just super intelligent and very musical. You know, he would have made a great teacher.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to teach. He was a music major. But wasn't meant to be.
That's sad.
Really?
I remember that day too. I remember
Yeah, that was.
when that it was he was missing in action. Then
Mhm.
later they
June
came and
and
said
then
he was.
August.
They said he had died. But it was a sad day. I
Yeah,
remember.
his body arrived on one of my brother's birthday, James's birthday,
Mhm.
August 22nd.
That's,
Yeah, that was a sad time for the whole street. I think the whole street felt.
Yeah.
one of the things that we skipped over on our sheet, and you touched on this a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stores and restaurants that you remember, you know, either within the neighborhood or even downtown, North Main Street, or just in general?
Well, this used to be, Main Street used to be very busy. There was a lot of stores and restaurants. Of course, we had downtown then.
Mhm.
And there was, like I said, about those two stores that you could get credit at. This is the place in this area over there. There used to be where more Afro-Americans would hang out. Do you think so? There was a chocolate bar over there. There was, what was there, Fergie's?
There was a picket fence.
The picket fence.
That was,
That was a bar as well, the picket fence was?
yeah.
It was upstairs,
Mhm.
and there was Fergie's. He had a really nice
You know.
place. He, when Fergie opened that place up, he opened up a high
It was a
quality
nice-
place.
mhm.
And this was.
And there were several pool rooms down there.
Mhm.
I
In fact,
understand
my-
this, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I understand this area was, as it is today, it was known as the Flats,
Yeah.
sort
Yes.
of,
Mhm.
okay.
I really didn't know too much about them.
The reason we knew, and this is funny, because when we would walk from Lilly Street to Second Street, but we would always walk on this side of the street. We couldn't cross the street because that's where the bars were. And Grandma said we couldn't cross the street. We had to walk on this side of the street. But we could walk. But the thing of it is, you never felt unsafe, even walking to church or back if it was getting dark,
And you
whatever.
could walk at night, you know?
You never felt unsafe. The people knew you, or they knew you were whose child you were, or who you were related to. But there was some grocery stores, because the Friendly House used to be, let's see, down there, where the VA in that area. That's the Friendly House used to be there. There was grocery stores across the street.
Mhm.
There was a place called the Busy Bee.
I can't remember the names.
There was a restaurant that was owned by Afro-American. I can't think of his name. Did you hear about the company line? They told you about, there was
A little bit, yeah, tell us.
there was a place out there where, I think Gorman Rupp has, out there was a place called the Company Line. And, there was just nothing but, I think it was all Afro-Americans that lived out there.
Mostly people that worked at the steel mill.
Mhm.
They came and built homes out there.
And it was, I can't remember how many streets, but I remember some of the families, you know, the White family, the Hendersons, McNeil's. I can't think of his name, but he owned the Robinson, yeah, who's has a lot of historical. I think her family lived out there.
You said Beverly Henderson.
Henderson. But it was another place, a community came up, and they were just predominantly Afro-Americans. I don't know of any other the people that were there, but it was another community, and it's amazing that when that land was purchased, you know, it's like it's all gone now. But what were the stores like? The big store was A&P for us. That's where we would go shopping from. And
the department store was Kobackers.
Kobackers.
Now, where was Kobackers?
It's where the Kobacker room is now.
Okay, no.
You
On
were
Main.
the, were the Reed
Where
building?
Reed-
Oh, okay. I knew. I'm like,
Ed
I know I've
Pickens.
seen that
You know where
sign.
Ed Pickens' place is?
Okay, that's where it was, like,
Mhm.
kind of up from where Reed's
Yeah.
was. And,
Yeah, we used to go to Kobackers and trying to think what other stores they had there, Scatter Goods.
Maxwell's. Um,
and now A&P was on 6th,
yes,
where
right over here.
the Jones.
With the Jones potato chip.
Okay.
Mhm.
So while you ladies are thinking of more, can I ask you, I was talking to my mom recently about Maxwell's. Do you remember when it burned down at all?
Yeah, I remember it
Do you-
burning, but it's fuzzy.
Yeah, do you remember, I was just curious like how that happened, or I don't know if you know anything about that at all?
I never did hear out what happened.
I don't know what happened, you know, I just know it was a bar on Bowman Street, and years later, I met the
No,
young
we're
lady.
talking about Maxwell.
Maxwell?
Department
Oh,
store.
you're talking about the department store, I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about the bar.
Oh,
There was a Maxwell bar there.
oh, was
too.
there? Okay, I wasn't aware of
Yeah,
that.
that's
Okay.
when you were saying Bowman Street, I was
Mhm.
thinking, I don't know, but yeah.
It was a big fire, I remember that.
And they used to have an elevator. Didn't Dorothy Brightwell work on the elevator?
And that was on Park Avenue, one of the
Yeah,
buildings.
she was at the Farmer's Bank.
Farmer's Bank.
Yes,
One of the things I do remember is that, and during that time, there was, as employees, there was no Afro-American employees that worked as salespeople at the time.
Right.
They could be in the maintenance or custodian part or run the elevators.
Mhm.
Because I used to work at, help Aunt Margaret out with, she worked at the Leland Hotel before it was torn down. And we worked, you know, I would take her place if she was sick on the elevators, or they worked in the laundry room at the Leland Hotel. I'm trying to think of any more stores or anything. There was the Woolworths, we call them 5 and dime stores. Kresge's and Woolworth,
Eisner's.
Neisner's.
And
yes,
Grant.
Grant's. And then it was O'Neill's then, that was, O'Neill's was a nice store.
Yeah.
And then J.C. Penney's. But there was a town, you know, there was a place where you could.
Yeah, there was a Holly shop
Mhm.
where I used to get a lot of the girls' clothes when they were in high school.
And one of the stores that remain is Crow's.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Mhm.
We've actually, in doing the research for the film we're working on and things, we have a photograph of looking up, it would be looking south on Main,
Mhm.
looking towards downtown. Maxwell's is actually on fire. They're fighting the fire in it, but what's great about it from our perspective is you can see all the different shops, like some of the things you're talking about. You can see Neisner's, O'Neill's is there. But Crow's is
Yeah.
right there. I mean, I think it's the same sign.
Yeah,
even.
Yeah.
it
It's
is, and I
amazing.
think it's
Taylor Shoe.
wonderful that he still remains
That really
there.
is.
His father, Mr. Delanitis, and his son just came
Yeah.
and took it over. I think
Mhm.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's some things don't change while everything else.
Rare today, yeah.
Yeah.
And Coney Island is still there, going across 4th Street. Different owners now,
Mhm.
but they still have the same Coney Island. It's still there.
That's great.
And that restaurant has to be how many years old?
It's,
At least 70.
I was gonna say 70, 80 maybe?
70 or
Yeah.
80 years old,
Yeah.
because I remember.
Well, one other thing, you guys mentioned Reverend King. Is it Joel King or Joe King?
Joel.
Joel, J-O-E,
Joe. Okay, I wanted to make sure I was hearing you right. And I remember seeing that Martin Luther King came and visited.
Yeah.
Were you there at that time? I mean, did you
Mount
see
Herman
it was at
Church.
Mount Herman?
It was such a crowd.
If you went
I
to-
think I started, and I think I turned around.
It was
I
so
don't
many
like
people
crowds.
there.
Yeah.
You didn't get, you was so many people that you couldn't get in
Yeah.
after. But he did come to visit, his
Okay.
uncle.
And Joel King's son is in Columbus. I saw him on television. Trying to think what the occasion was. One of the holidays recently.
He does come back and visit every now and then. He does.
And Joel King was the pastor at Mount Herman at that time, and that's
Right.
why he visited there.
Mhm.
Okay. What about O.C. Hill Any memories of him or any of the?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a cousin to my late husband. I think my uncle had did a lot of work with him.
Right.
But,
He was truly, he lived on Lily Street also. And Shirley, that was Shirley Jordan's, wasn't it her uncle? O.C. Hill? I think that's her uncle.
Okay.
What was her last name? Her grandmother?
Hill.
Hill, that's.
Shirley's name was Burridge.
Yeah, Burridge. But her mother Hill, they lived on Lily Street too. They were part of growing up, living there.
Okay.
She was such a quiet lady, wasn't she? And Shirley was very quiet growing up. Of course, she's a lot younger than I am. but he was truly a pioneer. He just, in fact, his son, I used to babysit him, Dwayne.
Okay.
He used to work for the city.
Okay.
And I remember I used to take care of him when he was very, very young. But he was always doing things to help people. He really was. And
I think OC just took up where J.D. left off.
I believe so.
Okay.
He just carried that same spirit of helping and caring and wanting to do what's right for people.
So was Mr. Middlebrook older than OC? Is
Oh,
that?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. What about, and I guess we're just trying to, part of what we want to get out of this is, leaders of the African American community, and those two names have come up. Reverend Washington is another one that came up quite often.
Yes.
Is there anyone else that we're forgetting, or anybody that you would add to that list? That...
Well, Dr. Childress.
Okay, that name as
Yes.
well. Now that, yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about him or
He was a
Reverend
president,
Washington.
wasn't he?
Yeah, he was president of NAACP for several years. I think I served under him a couple of years. Dr. Childress and Dr. Gaskin, they both were, and Joe Hill.
Okay, that name has not come up. Tell us about him. Who?
Oh.
He went to Providence. Didn't he?
Yeah, he came to Providence. Joe Hill, when he came to Mansfield, I think he was, I don't know what he was in the LK restaurants, after the chain of restaurants. And I don't know what he did with them, but yeah, he was a deacon at our church. But he was also president of the NAACP. And Attorney Flippin. Yeah.
Now, NAACP in Mansfield, how far back does that go? Is that, has that been here as long as you remember?
The original charter was, I think, about 1927. Mr. Wisdom, I think he was. And then they lost the charter because they became inactive. And then, I'm trying to remember, another attorney came in. Can you remember what it began with a B? But that's when, I can't remember. But that's when Attorney Flippin and Dr. Gaskin and that group.
And Nan Brooks, do you remember her?
She was with the Democrats.
But she did a
Yeah,
lot.
Nan Brooks.
Nan Brooks did a lot too.
Is
She
it
was-
Nan Brooks?
Yeah, was it Nan Brooks? Yes. She did a lot to help a lot of people.
Is it like NIA? NIA?
Nan, was it
N-A-N?
Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure I was hearing.
Her daughter used to work up at the hospital. I think she still does.
Is that her daughter or
Yeah.
granddaughter?
Well, she raised her.
Yeah.
So.
It was her granddaughter.
She still works at the hospital in the reception desk, but she was very instrumental in helping a lot of people. And in fact, she's the one that got me started in Young Dems years ago, was Nan Brooks.
Maybe we remember names, and I can't remember what all they did.
I'll go home and say, oh, I should have said
Yeah,
this person.
I'll say that too.
Well, that was pretty much what I had. I don't know if there's anything you guys would like to add that we haven't touched on, or just in context of telling people about the way things were, how things have changed.
I can't think of anything. I thought you asked some very good questions. You really did. I hope it was helpful.
Oh, yeah, it was a good interview. Yeah,
Very good, yeah. So.
But I've enjoyed it. I really have. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you
Much.
both
Appreciate
very
you
much.
being here,
Yeah,
definitely.
we really appreciate it. So.